And welcome to another video. In gardening and when you're creating a garden, it's really important to always think about the seasons ahead. So when we were in the autumn, I'm thinking about spring bulbs and planting them then, so that in the early spring you've got your bulbs coming up and you've got a nice spring display. So even though we're now in the deep depths of winter, I'm now thinking about the summer. And not just the early summer, but the late summer in particular. So your warm days, warm evenings, and then moving on into autumn, into the first frosts. And one of the key plants that I use for that period are cannas. Now cannas are tall, statuesque, exotic looking plants that add a kind of sense of wildness to any garden. Big leaves, big flowers, bold colours, bold coloured leaves, and they're very, very exciting. And also in England, they're really incredibly easy to grow. Now they come from hot countries such as the Central and Southern Americas. So, but over the years they've been cultivated and now you can grow them over here. So they don't really like cold or damp, wet weather, which is what England is all about. They do like warmth and heat to get going. But that doesn't mean they're not impossible to grow. So what we're now thinking about is getting our cannas started. Now, by the end of the autumn last year, when the frost had cut all the leaves down, I had some great big clumps that I dug out the garden, covered in some old compost, and then put in the shed at the bottom of the garden. And I'd basically forgotten about them over the winter. But now I'm thinking I want to reinvigorate those rhizomes, get them going and get slightly ahead before the summer season. Because the problem with cannas is if you don't get them started early enough, you may not have time to bring them into flower before the frost cuts the leaves down, and then you've lost a growing season, which is a bit disappointing. Now some of the advice is to start these cannas off in sort of March, April. But if you can put them on a warm windowsill, or if you've got a heated greenhouse or a heated conservatory, you can start that process earlier, which is what I'm doing now. So what I did was I've taken the clump, and this set of rhizomes was all one big giant clump, and I've taken the secateurs to it, and what I've done is I've cut it down into solid rhizomes. Now they tend to snap off or break quite easily, but you want to make sure you've got some growing points attached to the rhizome and obviously some roots, because obviously the plant will need to feed from that. And then you can cut off the old mouldy bits as well that you've had from the sheds, anything like that, and anything that's sort of broken root or doesn't look very healthy, just cut that right off and only keep the healthy, hard, nice, tender plants, tender rhizomes. Now, if you're going to buy cannas, you can buy them in this kind of state, and they come in sort of earth or paper trimmings or anything like that, but it's important to get them going quickly as soon as you've got them, or cover them with compost until you grow them, because otherwise they'll just shrivel up and die. But beyond that, cannas are really easy to grow. So all I'm going to do is plant these lovely little rhizomes in a pot with some compost, nothing special, no anything added or fertiliser or anything added at this point, just standard garden compost, which again is my own mix. And all you do is put that in, keep the growing tips if you've got any like on this one showing, and then give it a water and then put it to one side and watch it grow really. It will take a few weeks to get going again if it's been dormant, and sometimes with cannas they don't come back if they've been dormant. Now that's nothing to worry about, because in this giant clump like this where you've cut it all down, most of them will come back, and you will get the odd few that you just give up and throw away, but you'll always be left with more cannas than you started with at the end of the season, or the last season, believe me. Now this variety is called Durban, and what this has is a fantastic red, sort of maroon burgundy leaves flecked with sort of an orange veining and bright orange flowers. And then what I do is mix that up with a lovely canna called Hamani, which has got big green leaves and pink flowers. Now I know people think, red and pink and green and all that sounds horrible, but I like nice bright colours in the garden. I don't like all these kind of boring things, and I want a bit of excitement, and cannas absolutely do that, and they give you those leaves that sort of look almost like a banana, and they're very, very exciting. And then you can underplant them with whatever you like, because they're so tall and statuesque, they really give you height in the summer border. And then what you do is at the end of the growing season they require very little attention. In Kent it can get quite dry here in England, so you might go through long periods without any kind of rainfall at all. And then what you do is you just make sure the soil is full of nutrients. Now I don't add fertiliser to the soil, but if you add plenty of like your own compost, organic matter to your growing area, they'll be quite happy going along with that. I mean, if you have got manures or anything, or you want to use fertiliser, that will bring them on even further. But they're not too fussy about watering and drought, so they're good container plants as well if you want to grow them in a pot. Equally, if you've got them in a container, they're much easier to store over the winter because you can just bring the container into somewhere warm and dry, whereas I've had to get a couple of forks and some help to dig out these mass clumps where they've grown in the garden. And then all I did was put the clumps in some storage containers, covered them with some old soil, and then I really did forget about them, and then they've looked after themselves over the winter. But now I do really want to get going, and I think we'll come back to these at another time when see what they look like in a few weeks' time.